Welcome to Wine Club. This is the playlist where I drink good wine while I whine about a bad book. And today I'm going to be reviewing the Bane Witch by Ava Morgyn. I do want to give a warning, there are going to be spoilers in this review. If you want a spoiler-free version of this review, please check out my What I Read in June video. And as I say in all my reviews, this is solely about the book and not about the author as a person. I'm sure she is lovely and quite magical herself. I also want to say that I do not think that this is a terrible book. I ended up giving this 3 stars because I didn't hate it. But I do have some criticisms that I want to share, and they're going to be pretty spoilery, so I couldn't really talk about them in my original review. And they are a little whiny, so hence we are doing a wine club episode on this. I do also want to cover some trigger warnings for this book, just in case you don't want to hear about those topics, as they may be talked about in this review. So, content warning. Some of the thematic material in The Bane Witch contains depictions of blood, gore, physical and sexual assault, sexual trauma, kidnapping, violence, murder, suicide, and death. So if those could be triggers for you, please feel free to skip out of this review. And if you do decide to pick this book up, please go into it extremely cautiously and take care of yourself. Alright, well, let's go ahead and see what this book promised to be about. Practical magic meets Gone Girl in this dark, thrilling novel about a woman who is more than a witch. She's a hunter. Piers Corbin has always had an affinity for poisonous things, plants and men. From the pokeweed berries she consumed at age 5 that led to the accidental death of a stranger, to the husband whose dark proclivities have become concerning, poison has been at the heart of her story. But when she fakes her own death in an attempt to escape her volatile marriage and goes to stay with her estranged great aunt in the mountains, she realizes her predilection is more than a hunger. It's a birthright. Piers comes from a long line of poison eaters, Bane Witches, women who ingest deadly plants and use their magic to rid the world of evil men. Piers sets out to earn her place in her family's gritty but distinguished legacy, all while working at her Aunt Myrtle's cafe and perpetuating a flirtation with the local, well-meaning sheriff to allay his suspicions about the body count she's been leaving in her wake. But soon, she catches the attention of someone else, a serial killer operating in the area. And that means only one thing. It's time to feed. So this is definitely practical magic meets Gone Girl, in the fact that some of the scenes or plot points feel like they were lifted straight from those properties and then just plopped into this book. I pictured the opening scenes pretty easily because I'm seeing Rosamund Pike from Gone Girl and Sandra Bullock getting all flustered around the sheriff. It felt like this isn't just an homage, this is just copying and pasting. Except where Sandra Bullock as Sally Owens is a sweet and loyal witch, Piers is not. She acts however the plot needs her to, and her arc doesn't really resemble a roller coaster track with nice smooth lines as she's making her progression through. It looked more like a chart showing a stock market crash with harsh nose-diving lines all over the place. She is all over the place, and I couldn't understand what is motivating her decisions more than half the time. She starts out very strong, maybe not necessarily physically strong, but mentally strong. She has survived her husband for this long. She is calculated. But then she just starts making terrible, rash decisions later on in the story that just didn't match up with who we are introduced to. It's also interesting in that she's fine with the dark deeds that she has done because she has accidentally murdered men not knowing what her powers are. But she looks down her nose at her family who does the same. The only change is that they specifically choose these men because they are doing terrible things. It just felt very much like rules for thee, but not for me, which doesn't even make sense because they're going the Dexter route. They are taking out terrible people. A lot of this story is about ridding the world of evil people, but Piers then is constantly bewildered that her family does this. Ma'am, these are monsters. There's no humanity left within the people that your family is poisoning. And again, they are going after these people who show no remorse for the bad deeds they've done, but Piers doesn't really feel that bad about the men that she's taken out. Oh, of course she's allowed to do it. There was something weird in that tone there that I just didn't like. as you can tell. So let's go ahead and talk about the plot properly. So it does start out very Gone Girl-esque, with Piers faking her own death and framing her husband. Well, it does and it doesn't. We hear about her being on the bridge where she is planning to jump from, knowing that, or hoping that she will survive it. But then we also stop for an info dump about who Piers is and her history and flashing back to her childhood, but then she's still on the bridge. But then we're going to do 17 more flashbacks and fill in all these gaps all at the same time. We go back to when she was a wee lass and took her first life. She didn't know what she was doing because she was 5 years old at the time, and we find out that she used her powers very, very young. This obviously freaked her mother out, even though that she knew Piers was going to have this magic, and basically took her to all these doctors to get her diagnosed with stuff so they would put her on medication, which did seem to keep her magic in check. And it's interesting that Piers' mom never talked about their magic, nor explained that Piers could eat toxic things but be a-okay. But if she eats those and then kisses somebody else, they are not. Which I get her mom wanted to protect her daughter, but that's also really shitty. It kind of felt like the Dursleys trying to squash the magic, but she's trying to squash the magic out of Piers, but that's not going to work long term. Truly, shouldn't Piers know what she's capable of? Yeah, don't tell the 5-year-old what she did, but wait until she's 13 and start explaining things. Wouldn't her mom want to save her daughter from this heartbreak if, again, she were to eat poison and then suddenly start taking the lives of men that she loved without knowing what was happening or how to stop it? So when Piers was a child, her Aunt Myrtle came for a visit and tried to get Piers' mom to go home to their coven, or the Venery, as it's called. Mom says no, and Myrtle tells Piers where she can find her if she ever needs Myrtle's help. As Piers moves into adulthood, she does lose her mother, but does find this guy and ends up getting married. Except he is an awful, awful, awful person, and she knows he intends to end her life. Maybe not tomorrow, but he wants to do it. Because one of her powers is she can get glimpses of things, and she sees exactly what he wants to do to her, as well as to other women. So Piers has had enough of her shitty husband and the pain that he causes, so she ends up faking her death. She has been planning this for a while. Again, she starts out very smart, and in a Gone Girl manner, has left clues for the police to put the blame on her husband. She wants them to find this phone that has pictures of the harm he causes. She wants them to find a black sweater that will tie him to the crime scene. She can be smart, she just chooses not to later in the book for whatever reason. This is also where we start to get our dual point of views, as we'll get chapters from the investigator who's looking into Piers' disappearance, and his name is Detective Reyes. He's pretty interesting, and he's a good guy. He is determined to figure out what happened, and is the first to kind of start realizing, I don't think she's actually dead or missing. But on the same hand, this book would have been completely fine if all of his chapters were cut. They help bring some balance to it. But again, it all ends up just happening the same way it would have, whether or not he was part of the plot. So Piers begins making her way north to get to Myrtle's, and ends up taking a man's life in the process. And she does take his car for a good measure to help her get there. Now, I will say he was planning on attacking her. I think she, got a premonition about it. So I don't care if he meets his maker. And again, she was using her powers without knowing. So she feeds it to Myrtle's, and Myrtle spills the magic beans. She explains that Piers comes from a long line of witches and has the ability to ingest poison and then use it on her marks. So she can take all this poison in, and then again, if she kisses somebody or spits in their food, that poison all comes back out and will attack the person. So she can ingest massive amounts of poison and hoard it and then unleash her magic through it. But with this magic means that she does have to sacrifice normal things. She can't have a normal life. She cannot be in a relationship, as she may poison her partner. And she cannot have sons. Only daughters are allowed in the family, because the daughters are the ones who carry on the magic. She finds out that at one point Myrtle had a child, but she had a son, so she had to give him up to protect him from her own powers. Myrtle ends up offering her refuge and a job and a place to stay low while she figures out, what she wants to do. Myrtle basically owns kind of like this little resort, campground kind of thing in a small town, and she runs an on-site restaurant. She's well known and well liked in town. So one night Piers is working at the cafe, and this man and his abused wife come in. Piers spits in his coffee after having ingested some poison over the nights before, and he dies after he drinks it because he ingested these toxic mushrooms in her place. So of course this attracts the attention of the town sheriff, who kind of already had a budding romance going with Piers. Again, just picture Sally Owens and the officer trying to find Jillian's boyfriend, and you've got this couple. Honestly, their romance wouldn't bother me as much if there was more time between things and we got to see it develop a little bit more. Had it been a year since she had faked her death, I'd probably be more on board. But you're telling me she just left a man who hurt her, and she knew he wanted to kill her, and yet she is ready to be vulnerable with a man who probably knows how to cover up some crime scenes himself? It just honestly didn't feel realistic for them to jump into this relationship, especially when he tells Piers he is watching Myrtle. He is very suspicious of her. A while back, some cafe patrons had died in weird ways that he kind of linked to them, even though he doesn't fully understand how it's linked. But Piers is still going to sleep with him. I mean, it is very fade to black, which was fine with me, because I didn't honestly feel any chemistry between them. Their relationship is not that, it just doesn't feel very well developed. Again, it feels like the practical magic, Sally and the sheriff, but we just shoehorned it in this instead of giving it its own time to develop. So after the death by coffee spitting, Myrtle calls a meeting, or it's called a conclave in this, where the rest of the family gets to meet Piers and decide if she lives or not. This is a high-stakes situation. If she cannot control her magic, they will end her. They don't like that her kills have been messy. She needs to learn the rules and abide by them. Secrecy is very important to being a Bane Witch, and you either live like them and do your duty, or you head to the cemetery in a coffin. There's no in-between. You have two choices. Myrtle offers to train the young Padawan and teach her how to channel her magic. Myrtle will take responsibility for Piers, and she will help her learn how to take out her next mark according to the rules and making sure that it's done under the radar. And this is where it brings up something else that I didn't really love about Piers. Because Piers isn't like those other Bane witches. No. She's the most special of the special witches. Her powers manifested when she was 5, when most of the others in her coven first notice it when they're in their early teens. Her powers are more potent and fast-acting than her family's. Myrtle makes a point to say, your powers should not manifest, or should not have worked this fast on this guy. He should have been able to drink his coffee and then, die off-site. That's how they can get away with some of their killings, because people can't connect the dots. And again, Piers also has extra abilities and has these psychic flashes about her mark's victims, or even her own life, as again, she saw what her husband, Henry, was intending to do to her. So she has all of this. She started developing her powers very young. Why didn't the Venery just kidnap her and bring her into the fold after her first kill? Again, it seems like a very serious threat that if she doesn't learn how to control her magic, they will end her to protect themselves. But they let her mom run off with her, and again, she has all this power, she has all these abilities. If this is a society that is willing to kill their own to get what they want, would they really not have grabbed her when she was a child and offed the mom earlier? There were some motivations that I'm like, okay, the stakes can't be this high though if they're willing to give second chances. Because in this sense, they can't really blame her for being so sloppy. She doesn't know what she's doing. She didn't even realize that it was her killing these men. I mean, obviously she knew she was next to him, but, she didn't understand how her powers worked. They knew that her mother wasn't telling her anything. Again, if they're fine with potentially offing Piers to keep their secret, wouldn't kidnapping be on the table? That way they could easily just have raised her to be just like them, understand the rules, and be a super powerful weapon in their venery. Just doesn't make any sense. And at this part, Piers both does and doesn't want to learn about her magic. I can understand that to a point, but she becomes such a waffler about it that it became exhausting. Because it doesn't really go anywhere. Like, one chapter ends where she's embracing her destiny and her powers. But then the next chapter she's all, I don't want this. But then the next chapter she's proud to be a witch and this is her duty. Then the chapter after that, she doesn't want this. She wants a normal life. And it just goes back and forth. Like, pick a lane, bitch, and start driving. Plus, in the background of all of this, we have the fact that the town's women are being hunted by basically the Scranton Strangler. We find out that he is in town because Piers is. Part of their magic is called their allure, which draws their marks to them, which is a pretty cool power. I really liked the magic in this. I just wish more had been done with it. So Piers and the Strangler are drawn to each other. Piers tells the sheriff that she's a psychic, so he will take her to the crime scene so she can get her flashes. And she does start getting her flashes of him and his victims. And, this is probably one of those chapters where she's, yes, this is my duty. And she is going to find this guy and end him. She also finds out from the sheriff that the reason he's suspicious of Myrtle is because of one of Myrtle's marks. And this part of the book made me really mad because she finds out that Myrtle's mark was a 21-year-old. And Piers is furious with Myrtle. He's practically a child. How could she murder a 21-year-old? Piers, my sweet summer child, you have heard the horror stories from the other Bane Witches. They're not just killing people who shoplift or jaywalk. These men are monsters, truly vicious, and have no remorse for the pain that they've caused. But no, Piers is stuck on his age, as if that has anything to do with it, as if killers can't be children themselves. I watch a lot of true crime, and a lot of serial killers started showing lots of little red flags when they were children. Him being young does not negate what atrocities he has committed. It was just such a strange reaction from Piers. Because again, she has killed men. She's been around the Bane Witches long enough to understand what they are doing and why they do it. Piers has also been thinking that she herself made a mistake by faking her death instead of actually just killing her awful husband. Again, it's fine for you to do it, Piers, huh? But not these other women? How dare Myrtle kill this guy because he's 21? Ugh. So she does confront Myrtle about it and screams at her until Myrtle basically spells out how many people this young man hurt. How young his own victims were. Some of whom were toddlers. Now, at least Piers does have a working brainstem for a minute and realizes that, maybe the world is better off without him, no matter how young he was. And then she just decides to be an idiot. Piers tells the sheriff what is going on and about her witchy powers. She tells him the big family secret. She tells an officer of the law that she and her family are basically witchy vigilantes and doling out their own sense of justice. The family made it very clear that they will kill their own to protect the larger coven. Piers, do you really think that they're going to appreciate the newbie telling others what they do and pointing out their secrets? So she runs on home to tell Myrtle the good news that, she's outed herself. And Myrtle is horrified, and rightly so. She knows what the Venery will do to both Piers and the sheriff, and now herself. She took responsibility for Piers. Does Piers care that she basically gave Myrtle a death sentence? Not really. Yeah, I don't like Piers very much. Girl, I get it, your vagina is magical, but you can't out your entire family. But then it gets worse because something happened that just made me see red, and it barely seems to have any impact on Piers. So Piers stops Myrtle from telling the other witches, and does so by handcuffing her and leaving her lying on the couch. She's off to meet the sheriff and investigate like a recent crime scene, and again, she's trying to find the Scranton Strangler. She knows a killer has been drawn toward her from her allure, and she leaves Myrtle defenseless and alone. Piers goes to her stakeout but can't find him, and so she gets a weird feeling and goes back home, and Myrtle is dead. Myrtle was killed by the Strangler. And Piers honestly seems pretty unaffected by it. She does not have a strong emotional reaction to it. Her response to Myrtle being killed by Piers's own mark gets like a paragraph that's pretty dry and unemotional. She says she cried when it happened, but I feel like it happened off page because we don't really see her sobbing. I could not believe how callous she was about getting Myrtle killed. Myrtle is gone because of your actions, Piers. Like, can you please have a reaction to it? Can you please care for and grieve for your aunt? She is dead because of you. She took you in when you had nowhere else to go. She told you about your magic. She provided you a home and a family and all of this stuff. And because you had to get closer to the sheriff, she is now dead. And again, she has barely any reaction to it. It's mostly, oh, Myrtle died. It was sad. But then, like, she tells the sheriff to stay away from her as, now she's mad because now it's personal, which I don't understand because you didn't really seem to be affected by Myrtle's death. But she has to start consuming because she's going to go on this hunt, so she is going to be highly toxic to the sheriff. She goes on for multiple paragraphs about how much it hurts and the tears are flowing and how is she going to bear the pain of sending him away. Like, Jesus Christ, girl, I need you to get your priorities in order. You killed your own aunt, and you're going to shed more tears because you have to tell your boyfriend to run away for a week? So she ends up telling the sheriff that she loves him and can't be responsible for getting him hurt. But you're fine with that when it's Myrtle, right? I don't like it. I don't like it. Piers does give off, like, not only a I'm not like other girls energy, but she's also not a girl's girl. She doesn't seem to care that Myrtle is dead, but heavens to Betsy, if her boyfriend has to go away for a week, what is she possibly gonna do? Not here for it. So she finally does get to confront the Strangler, just as the Detective Reyes, you probably forgot about him, but he has realized that she is alive and well, and he arrives on the scene at the same time. And she's mean to him for no reason. Like, I get this is a high-stress situation, but it's just, like, she doesn't even say, like, oh, thank you for trying to find me and proving that I'm, thank you for caring enough to figure out that I was alive. So anyway, the Strangler is there and tries to kill her, but she is so poisonous that her power makes pretty quick work of him, and he ends up thriving in agony and just expires. Do we find out his identity? Has he just, been a background character and we just didn't make the connection? No, he is just literally a nameless bad guy. I could be wrong because maybe I did just miss it, but I truly don't think we ever figure out, what his name was, who he was. He is just a villain floating off in the background that has nothing to do with the rest of the story. But then, of course, we have a secondary villain because Henry also shows up after Detective Reyes was asking some questions, and he also pieced together that, oh, she faked her death. She's still alive. How he found her, I don't fucking know. But he shows up, spits out some terrible dialogue about how he's going to end her life, and she gets the job done first, and he's now dead as well. So, cool. That's all over with pretty fast. And then Piers gets a happy ending where she's with her sheriff, she's inherited Myrtle's cabins and cafe, and joins the Bane Witches. The hunt is on for her next mark. The end. So again, I did end up giving this 3 stars. This is not the worst thing I've ever read. I was not hate reading it at the end. There were a lot of spoilery things that I needed to whine about. It's a book, it has a plot, it has a character arc, even though it's, again, all over the place and I don't understand what's going on in Piers's head. There are subplots, And this had all the right elements for a fantastic fantasy thriller. I also thought the setting was pretty great, and I really loved like the foresty feelings and cozy witch vibes. I also loved the idea and the lore behind the Bane Witches. That was so well done. That was fantastic. The concept is pretty cool. The purpose behind their powers is something I can get on board with. Give me all the feminist rage and vengeance. But again, there's just a lot of things that I didn't like about this. Most of it is Piers, because again, I don't understand her, and I really hated her reactions to certain things. I also found this story was often very slow, and we're plodding along, we're meandering, we're spending a lot of time on details that in the end I don't really care about. This book felt like it suffered from a lot of starts and stops. Things will start picking up and then we have to stop, and then things are picking up and then we just have to stop. There were times that I was really engaged, and there were times that I found myself skimming. Again, maybe they did name who the Scranton Strangler was, and I just missed it, but I truly do not remember them giving him a name. Now, this could also be that I struggled with the writing style and dialogue, which honestly felt like it got kind of worse near the end. At times, this was kind of tedious to read. Now again, I will say I kind of wish maybe I had waited until autumn to read this, as it has all the autumnal vibes and is a book that really demands that you be immersed in the setting. It's very atmospheric and moody, and this could have been the perfect read in the fall where I could sit outside when it's a bit chilly in the morning. Maybe there's a little bit of mist hovering over the grass, the leaves are turning, and it's just starting to feel like fall. Reading this when it was 105 degrees outside felt kind of odd and jarring, so I will take some accountability there. Maybe this is, again, just a better fall read. Well, I did just note, I did a pretty good job, matching. I really, really wanted to give this more than 3 stars. Again, the concept is so cool, but I can't. The best I can give this is a solid 3. It's a great idea. The magical realism is so fun, and again, the themes of vengeance and women taking charge when our systems fail to protect the innocent were very well done. And again, the setting and atmosphere. This had a lot of potential, but it's just weighed down by clunky writing, a snail's pace, and a romance that really didn't need to be in this story about a woman coming into her power as in her own right and as a witch and figuring out her identity. The romance felt really shoehorned in. This is another read that I do think probably would be well adapted for the screen, and then at least we wouldn't be in Piers's head and listening to her flip-flop constantly and basically judge everyone around her. If you can't tell, I did not like Piers. Now, I do want to end this by saying that I think Morgyn is talented and created an interesting and very immersive world. I will definitely give another work of hers a try, because I do think this had a lot of potential. There were just some things that I did not love about this. But if you do have any other witchy reads that you've loved, please feel free to share your recommendations in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for joining me at One Club.